If you are a witchy content creator and would like to support raising awareness and education about the Palestinian colonization and genocide, along with raising funds with medical aid for Palestinians, I am working to start the Witches for Palestine project. No matter the numbers, if you want to be part of Witches for Palestine, drop me an email and we're gonna do our bit to support a free Palestine. Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video, we're going to discuss the points of the occult tag that has been started by Joanna, the Polish witch, Ella, and the red-headed witch. So thank you all, actually, for coming up with this, because it gives very good prompts to discuss how the situation of WitchTube and in general the online witchcraft community is. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi, which is an alternative to Patreon that takes less from creators. And on there, you can do a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or even get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5. And if you decide to support my work there, thank you so very much. I need to start with a premise. I usually do videos that my audience has very kindly picked according to their interests. This week there was supposed to be another video published. I have very low energy that required filming in more than one ways, and when I found myself not able to do it in time, I decided, you know what, I actually had a lot of things to say about the occult tag, because in a way or another I've been a content creator for longer than a decade. And I hope that my audience can indulge me in this, and hopefully I'll make it up to you next week. But this is the reason why I was like, I can talk when you ask me to talk about something. Filming something more complicated than that at the moment is a bit out of my league. So here we are. I also promised myself that if for whatever reason this video is getting longer than half an hour, I'm gonna cut it in 2 parts and then I'm gonna publish the next one tomorrow, in a couple of days, like as soon as I can edit it. But it's just not to make it incredibly long and then rightfully maybe you forget about the last part, maybe there are gonna be interesting things, I don't know, but that's a premise that maybe you will not see if I manage to keep this video under 30 minutes. Let's start with an introduction. In case you are finding this video through the tag and you don't know me, hi! You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and I have been around the witchcraft community for 18 months now, although I've been making content in this form with my face since October 2023. As the name of this channel and now all my social media suggest, I discuss the intersection of witchcraft and activism. Because believe it or not, witchcraft is political, and if you're not aware of that, I'd argue it's interesting to delve into that part of witchcraft as liberation and witchcraft as rebellion to the system. If you're a witch, you have a lot of potential of being a rebel to subvert this system and bring on to be the next one. Let's make it better than this one was, shall we? My heritage is also split between Italy, Egypt and Wales, where I currently live. And sometimes you find me talk about my experience with Italian folk magic, as I was raised in a farmer's village that had a lot to do with superstition and folk magic indeed. You will hear my experiences as a person of color, as a queer person, as a fat person, as an autistic person. And basically I'm trying to figure out how to make something useful other than me just talking to the camera, letting this be therapy. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the community. The first point is, why do you share content, basically? And I think I discussed it well enough in my very first video on this channel. I wasn't planning on sharing my own content, and I started to do that because I realized how sometimes not by anyone's fault, but how incredibly white the witchcraft community, especially online, is and can be. And when the attention is on practices that are actually non-originally white, say hoodoo, voodoo, anything that has roots in Native America or African origins, that has been at the receiving end of some very problematic cultural appropriation, with the idea that eclectic witchcraft is something that you pick and choose here and there. Because of that, and because of my daily activities as an activist and educator in matters of intersectionality, I kind of felt the pull to start talking about how those two things meet, or how can they meet, because it's important. And if it's beyond the awareness of someone because of someone's privilege, as I mentioned before, privilege is not a bad word, a dirty word, but it's very important to understand which ones we have, because once we understand the privileges that we've been afforded within the system, then we can put it to the service of those who don't. And that's one of the steps of how we change the system. What am I looking for in participating into this tag? Very currently and locally, the simple fact that talking about things is something that my energy can afford me, whilst doing more complicated things, not so much. In general, because of the topic, as I mentioned before, I am familiar with content creation. I have been what you nowadays call a content creator. Before it was an influencer. Before that, it was just simply a YouTuber for quite some time. So having discussions, having meta discussions, it's something that I've always been very interested in participating, because, again, going back to the first point, analyzing and looking into situations that you are part of allows you to understand the situation and context around you, and then how you can move within it to change it if change is needed. The third point is, how do I believe the social media has impacted the community? And I might say something that can be quite left field from what you expect, because I know Witch Talk by fame. I don't quite frequent the places of Witch Talk, but I've heard by fame the kind of mess that it sometimes can be, because when you make short content without references and just with the ambition of shocking people so that they stay longer or watch longer, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? However, as someone that have seen the evolution of social media and Web 2.0 and those kind of things, I will say this. On the long term, very rarely the events stick to the meaning that they have in the moment that they happen. What I mean to say is, once you talk about something and it's talked about often enough that it gets somehow to the zeitgeist, to the current discussions, whether it's good or bad, it alerts people to its existence. And then it's up to people to find out more. The simple fact that you talk about something plants the seed, and then it's up to whoever receives and finds that content, whatever they do with it. So it's giving a lot of trust to the critical thinking abilities of people. But then again, what else can you do? Why would I be better than anyone to draw their own conclusions? In short, I think that on the matter of witchcraft on social media, I do not quite believe that there is such a thing as bad publicity. Things need to be out there so that people can start looking into them. And there is so much information already that it will go amiss, because as human beings, we won't have the time to know or learn or hear about everything. But something that in any way gets to plant a seed in the back of our mind gives us a chance to then develop it ourselves. And there's a lot of trust that needs to be given to free will. Yeah. The next question goes into detail about TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube specifically. And as I mentioned, I don't have a lot of experience with TikTok. I can see the problematics in it, and I just hope that people take the inspiration and then look further into things. Instagram is where we all escaped from the boomerism of Facebook, even though there are problematics there on the importance put on aesthetics rather than substance. YouTube has always been a place that gives people a chance to actually give further ideas and possibly give you sources as well. There's a length to it that at some point the algorithm favored. Nowadays I'm not so sure anymore, especially because they decided to go into shorts, but who am I to judge? And I think that in a way, if you want to look to TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, they relate to different levels of depth that information can be delivered to you. On a TikTok descriptions, you very rarely find sources, references, bibliography. On an Instagram post you might, but it's not the main thing that happens. On a YouTube video, possibly because I'm used to video essays, there is a bibliography if you so choose to. And that speaks to me about the possible depth that you can decide to deliver. The last point is about the consumption of content and how does that fit into the practice? Does it become a substitute for practicing? And for that, I will actually send you, if you feel so inclined, to check the video that I've done about low energy witchcraft. Because I know that it might sound like a bad thing. Oh, is consuming content as well as being a witch? I don't think necessarily that, but I think that every witch will also tell you that there's a lot of research and reading and studying that goes into developing your own practice in witchcraft. So somewhere you need to get that information. You read if that is something that you are inclined and proficient at doing. But if you have any kind of disability like dyslexia, which is my case, consuming content that comes in audio, like podcasts, or in video, like here, it becomes a crucial part of research as well. And then at that point, it comes back that critical thinking about where does information come from? Is this person trustworthy? Do they give me sources that whether I check or not are there and that it means something? And then at times, if the energy is incredibly low, I realized, as I said in my low energy video, that yes, consuming content can become in a way a substitute for practice when I don't have the energy to practice, and doing absolutely nothing would make me feel worse. So thank goodness for content that in some ways allows me to passively receive information so that I still do something or know something better than the day prior without having watched content at all. At least that's what I tell myself, because otherwise some days I really could lose the concept of time and doing. The second section is about authenticity. And boy oh boy, if I love this. I am tempted to spoil already something that surely will be part of the question, so no, let's follow, let's be proper in this. And the first point is, out of what I personally shared, how much is staged versus how much is reality. And that is actually a video that I've meant to do for a while. I gave it as an option for people to vote, and it never quite got enough attention. But that is one of my points. Sometimes I've heard some people say that no, you absolutely do not share what you actually do. For protectionist reasons, I imagine. And you know, when you are on the internet, there are other general protections that do not regard witchcraft, like identity, like where you live, like all that stuff that is related to doxing. I kind of understand that. However, I personally am extremely naive in a way. And the entire reason why I started to make content way before it was witchcraft content, it was because I wanted to look for connection. And when you look for genuine connection, you need to be genuine about who you are and what you do, because otherwise what's the point of people coming to like you and appreciate you if it's something that you're actually not? Then it becomes a matter of keeping up a pretense, and I can't imagine how hard that is and how long it can go on for. So everything that I share is authentic in my case. And I know that it's risky in a way, but I also feel kind of chilled about it. I might have to skip the question on matters of censorship, because I don't think I ever violated terms of service of any social media so far, but also because of the aforementioned naivete and desire to share definitely there isn't any self-imposed censorship to a fault. The next question is about grifters, and I think much as it applies to our community, it applies to pretty much every niche on the internet. I come from different niches beforehand, and I can tell you this, I have seen scams going on for different reasons, for people to make money out of nothing, in everything pretty much. I think, unfortunately, the witchcraft community kind of lends itself to it because of the unverifiability of some things. I'll just say this, and I'm not judging whoever buys or sells services in terms of spellcraft. I did start to practice, though, to put in motion my own spells, because when it comes to spellcrafting, there's a lot of understanding, visualizing, and having clear ideas about manifestation, basically, of your own will and desire. And my slight perfectionism, that is definitely mutuated from autism, wouldn't allow me to trust someone that doesn't know me and specific facets of my life to work magic on me or for me. The classical scam that I have seen is someone cloning a profile, especially on Instagram, and then started to follow all the followers of the actual real person, blocking the real person so that they don't know that they've actually been cloned, and then starting to hit at all the followers, seeing if they want to buy a reading or they got a message that they need for you to listen to. And I think that usually should be very obvious, but again, I don't judge necessarily if anybody fell for it. Just usually there are official ways, like a lot of witches have shops, like I have a shop on Etsy. That's a thing that is different from grifting and hustling, I feel. I think the other side in the witchcraft community about, yes, it does lend itself to this kind of scammy stuff because it's unverifiable. At the same time, though, it also lends itself to the single individual person to take witchcraft upon their own hands and change the matter at hand for themselves. I come from the health and fitness niches before this, believe it or not. And in that niche, you needed to have some background before you could sell your services or make it sound like you had even services to sell. In the witchcraft community, no, open gates. I mean, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that try to be gatekeepers, but ultimately the books are there, the resources are out there, you can do it yourself more than anything else I have seen. And possibly, hopefully, that balances it out. At the core of it, there's an issue of self-esteem. You can either trust yourself to be able to take life into your own hands and then cast spells, work magic, or you don't believe that you are good enough to be able to influence that, and you decide to simply pay someone to move the responsibility onto their own will. And I have this feeling that if you don't believe in yourself enough to cast for yourself, what does the universe think about anything that you want that you would just pay for? I don't think that for a lot of things in witchcraft, having economical access will also give you access to the power of the universe. But maybe it's because of me and I am a broke witch, so I make do with what I have. The next point is about misinformation, and for that I will only say you need critical thinking skills. A few months ago there was a tag going around, which I think is the second video that I ever made, about how do you apply critical thinking to something as ineffable as magic. And again, in a way, it goes back to how much do you want to believe things more than you want to believe in yourself. So I'll just leave it at that. The next point is about large followings and how that impacts the credibility of people. And this applies to many more niches than the witchcraft one. And commonly, I think that popularity goes easily along with the false and wrong idea of authority. I don't think that's something that you can fight, because it's the entire point of popularity to appeal to average. You don't fight that really. Is it correct? No. But that's why the average thinks a certain thing, and then there are people that ask a few more questions and then start to believe something else based on more information. Am I being bitchy? A tiny bit of advice that I can give on that is that my account on YouTube I made specifically in September, October of 2022, just to follow people from the WitchTube community. And somehow I have trained my algorithm well enough that it suggests me and keeps suggesting me very small creator channels. So that way I have discovered some of my favorite YouTubers that I find absolutely interesting and valid, and the validity of what they say and share does not have to do with necessarily their numbers. So my best advice on that is, when you see a video that has little views or a channel that has little subscribers, decide for yourself. Don't let the number affect you, because it can absolutely beautifully surprise you. People like Ella, she went into the woods, I found when she had less than 100 subscribers. I followed Eddie, the Wolfsbane Witch, when I think they had just literally opened the channel. So there is value in taking a chance and not let your unconscious biases that are based in what the system has taught us of popularity equals validity. And who knows what you might find. The last question of this section regards the balance between authenticity and content creation. And again, I know that usually it requires a trade-off. And I've spoken to creators that have very rightfully told me as much. Again, it might come down to what I do and why I do content creation, why I've been in a way or another sharing parts of my life for over a decade now. And that goes down to, let's go very deep here, the meaning of life to me. The meaning of life to me is finding people that look at the world in a similar way to mine, so that the way that we experience the world can be shared. Because when the world and the experiences are shared by someone that shares your vision, everything gets enhanced by this understanding that someone external to you is hit by things the same way. And again, if I wasn't very open and honest about what I do, who I am, how I see things, the people that I would connect with wouldn't be actually another me of sorts, so that defeats the purpose for me. But I know that I am incredibly peculiar, which is another word for naive in my case in this, but I'm not completely naive. I accept the risk, I'm very aware of it. It's a trade-off that I accept. I feel that this has gone on long enough already, so here's what we're going to do. There are 3 sections to go through still: imposter syndrome, capitalizing off of the community, and general conclusion. And for those, I'm gonna see you in the second part of this video, so that you can take your time and make your choices and ponder them if you decide to listen more to what I might have to say. And until you find the next video, I hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there is so much need for it.